Hey guys, welcome back to our series of tech tips where we do short little videos and show you some of the tips and tricks we've learned along the way to make your life easier. And you know, through last year of me starting to one stick and this year a whole bunch, we've learned 3 or 4 really must-do tips that will help your life, make your life a whole lot easier in getting rappel ropes out of the tree. Come back right after this, we'll show you what they're all about. Okay guys, we're going to start off with almost a 3-in-1 tip right off the bat. 3 tips total, but this one's going to be 3-in-1 embedded into one. So the first thing we're going to do when we get ready to rappel down, obviously, I've got my rope stuffed over here in my pouch, just like I showed you in how to manage your rope. So I'm going to remove it from the carabiners. I'm going to take it out and drop it off down to the ground. That's going to free up my pouch so I can reach in and grab my Dynaglide. Here's tip number 1 in this subset A, if you will, of tip number 1. Always use Dynaglide or a Zingit or something like that. We really recommend Dynaglide. Guys, this has almost zero stretch to it. It has a really nice lubricated coating almost that makes it really easy to glide over limbs, and that'll be important later on because we're going to close this little tip trick out with showing you how to get a rope out of limbs, because a lot of people ask that, so stay around for that. But so I just dropped my Dynaglide, no tangles. We'll show you how to do that in the last video. And then I'm going to clip. You can either clip on directly behind the scaffold knot. In this case, I'm using the ohm tether lock here, and so it has a built-in little spot here to clip into it. And the nice thing about it is, get to remove the ohm, you can pull it free from down below. So I'm just going to move that to my left side here. But here, so that was tip number 1. Don't use paracord. If I see people saying, oh, you can just use paracord, I know they haven't one stick very long. That stuff is so stretchy, you will frustrate yourself to death trying to pull a rappel rope, especially if it's got a bunch of limbs and stuff. Don't use paracord. Number 1, subset A, use Dynaglide. Number B, if you will, number 2 of this little trick is stand up and loosen your girth hitch, where you've been putting all your weight against it this whole time of your hunt. You know, you've been on the tree for 3 or 4 hours or so. It's kind of locked in, right? Stand up and loosen it a little bit. Number 2, or B of this tech tip, loosen a little bit. And then number 3, or C of this initial tech tip right here, is a lot of times I will put my tether right in a crotch of a tree or right above a limb or something like that as I'm hunting. It just kind of, yes, the ohm is going to do a good job of keeping the tether from slipping. I just find a lot of, like, here's a great example. I'm almost head height. I could have went below this limb and it would have been a little too low. I prefer, if I'm right there at it, to go above it, right? It's just my preference. And a lot of people end up with their tethers right in a crotch of a limb or a tree or a fork of a tree or something like that. Okay, do this. Take your lineman belt. Be safe here. And before you get down, do this. Fix yourself with a lineman belt. Make sure you're good and secure. You're not going to go anywhere. There's one more daisy chain coming out. That's why you saw me flinch a little bit. Okay, I'm good and secure. At this point, I can go ahead and take this tether. I probably shouldn't have fixed my Dynaglide yet. But I'm going to move this tether just below the crotch in this tree. And then I'm going to reclose. I'm going to reattach my Dynaglide. I did that a little prematurely. Probably would have done this before I'd done it if I'd been in an actual hunting scenario, right? And at this point, I'm reattached with my tether. I can loosen, lean back into my tether, get rid of my lineman belt. But what I've done, guys, is I moved the tether from up above this, that was stuck in this crotch, to right here. Now, when I get ready to come down, I'm going to stop. I'm just trying to do this fast, guys, for the purpose of the video, so I don't take up a lot of your time. Normally I would have fixed it right here. Okay, now when I get ready, watch how much easier this comes down. Okay guys, tip number 2, and Gabe kind of pointed this out, that even though you break the friction of your girth hitch where you've been sitting for 4 or 5 hours, when you rappel back down, it will kind of lock it in again a little bit. I do believe it helps. I've seen it help. I've got a couple friends who believe it does. The big thing is, if it's sitting over a crotch, move it down. It will help you tremendously. Another thing though, when you do re-engage and put friction back on that and kind of lock it back in, even though you broke it free, another big thing that you can do is take your rope here, your rappel rope, and whip it. And this will really help break it free. You can kind of see it breaking even though I've rappelled. That's not way up there, but whipping that rope will help a bunch. So that's number 2, is take your rope, even if it's if you were hunting from 30 foot high, take it and whip that rope like that, and it will help break it free before you pull it down. That's tip number 2. And tip number 3, moving on to the last one here, is if you're standing directly under this, I'm putting some good pressure on it, and I could probably go ahead and muscle it down and pull it down. But if you're in a tree, if you're in the woods, there's been a lot of times, in fact the previous one, I couldn't really hardly get it down. If you really examine that previous clip, I had to walk out at about a 45-degree angle. So here's what I did, and here's what I do a lot of times if I'm in a tree, and here's why I have 40 foot of Dynaglide. Walk out at an angle. See the angle I'm getting on this now? This is why I have 40 foot of Dynaglide, even though I only hunt 20, 25 foot, somewhere in that range all the time. From here, it's a lot easier to break that girth hitch free around the tree and pull your rappel rope on down. At this point, I'll grab it, wind that up, but you've got your rope here, okay? So hopefully those tips help. We're gonna close this segment out by me climbing up in a multi-limb tree that's behind me. Now I'm going to set 2 different cameras at 2 different angles because I get this question quite a bit. Okay, Greg, I've seen you pull a rope out of a tree that doesn't have any limbs. That kind of makes sense. How do you get one out of a tree that's got a bunch of limbs in it, right? Let's show you and close this segment out with that right there. Okay guys, so we've just hit the ground. We've come down from a limb tree. I wanted to stop and pause and show you this. So this is important in retrieving your rope. I go ahead and remove the carabiner from my bridge, and I always use a detachable bridge, and I move that off to the side. Then you need to take your Mad Rock and carabiner off the rope because this will not slide through the quick link on the way up. It's common sense, but a lot of guys forget that, right? So we've got our rappel rope just dangling here, okay? So I've got my Dynaglide that I threw down, and I attached it first up there to the quick link. And what we're going to do is we're going to walk back slowly and get a better angle. And then I'm going to break this free, and I want you to see how it comes down from a limb tree, just like it would any other tree. What I'm going to do is grab this. I'm going to go ahead and take the Dynaglide off. At this point, if I wanted to, I could go ahead and start winding it up. But the main thing is I want you to see how it works through a limbed tree. It doesn't matter how many limbs it's got, guys. It's going to do the exact same thing. You can have 5 limbs. You can have 100 limbs. This is exactly. It just goes over, around, through, and falls down. Of course, it caught on that little bitty twig, but that's a great example too. It doesn't matter what it catches on. It's going to pull right on down through. So hopefully that helps explain it, because I get that question quite a bit. What happens? How do you get your rope down out of a tree that's got limbs? That's out. It just comes down just the same as if it didn't have any limbs. Okay guys, here's the last tip. So I actually went ahead and spliced a loop into the end of my Dynaglide. Obviously you got to take the carabiner off the other end, pull the little mini loop that you had spliced around the carabiner off, but you could tie it on if you wanted to. I spliced it. And then if you're having a lot of trouble getting your stick down, or your rappel rope down, you can actually loop this around a standoff and then just wind it around your rope a few times. Use this as a grab handle to pull with. So again, we're in the limbed tree. Use this as a handle. You'll see it'll break free. I used to pick up sticks a lot of times, and the sticks would be rotten laying on the ground. So I started using my one stick. But again, watch that come through the limbs. Once I get it to this point, guys, I'm going to just go ahead and remove my Dynaglide. I usually go ahead and wind it up, but for the sake of this video, I won't. Again, going through all the limbs, just going to come straight down. That's how it works, guys. So, again, the 3 tech tips on getting your rope down. If it's right on a crotch, remove it, break that hitch, that friction right there. Then number 2, grab your rope and slap it, whip it. That will help really get it. Number 3, come out at a 45-degree angle or more. That's why we use the length of Dynaglide we have. Don't pull it straight down. Walk out. That'll help you tremendously, walking out and getting an angle on it. And then if you have to, last resort, wrap it around that stick and don't be afraid to put some oomph into it. That's another great thing about Dynaglide. It's slick, it has 0 stretch, and it's strong as heck. Yank the heck out of it, your rope will come out. Hopefully this helps you guys.